Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we are starting our draft coverage as we talk about the top draft prospects entering the 2025 NFL Draft. And tonight, I got one of a few special guests that we're going to have over the next month. I'm privileged to be a part of a group chat that these guys are in. And I promise you, I learn something new every day. Some of the most knowledgeable, not only Cowboys fans, but just football fans in general. I got one at the top with me tonight, Mr. Dominic White. Thank you for joining.
Yes, sir. Enough with all the intro talk. I'm ready to dive in.
All right.
Like we were saying backstage, let's give the people what they want.
All right. Before we do that, I got to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So I see we got quite a few people joining us from X. If you get a chance, make sure you go to Facebook, find me at Bluff City Cowboys, hit that like button. Also, be sure to go to the DC4L Facebook group, hit that like button as well. Got a lot of great competitions coming up, a lot of great information, and just a safe space for all Cowboys fans to talk about their favorite teams. Yeah. Also, you guys can go over to YouTube, find me at Bluff City Cowboys, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. We got a lot of stuff coming up for you guys throughout the month of April. All right, so I see we got the views going up pretty quick. Once again, this show is interactive. We are fueled by Cowboys Nation. So be sure to get in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you're from. If you got any questions about what we're going to talk about, put those questions in as well. Tonight, we are talking about running backs and the big guys in the trenches on the defensive side. Got my guy Jeff joining us tonight. Says Dom got his pencil like a coach. We got pregame sweat. Eric joining us. Thank you for tuning in, Eric. We also got another longtime regular Mendoza. Congratulations on that new baby boy you got. Thank you for joining us tonight. Once again, get in the comments. Let us know what you guys think about anything we're talking about. Right. So we already know what everybody wants to talk about first. So let's jump into the running back group and Dom's top 10 draft prospects. And sounds like already, Dom, you may be wanting to make a couple of changes, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right. Once again, before I start this up, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that share button. Share it to your favorite page. Share it to your personal page, wherever we could talk and get the word out about what we're talking about tonight. So we're going to start off first with the top 5 running backs on Dom's list. I think doesn't matter. I think everybody's top 5 is kind of the same. I do have a question about one of these guys. So let's just start at the top. Ashton Jeanty. Dom, what is it about Jeanty that just makes him so special?
I think Jeanty is probably the best overall prospect in this class.
Wow.
When you're talking about a blue chip type player, it's everything that he's able to do. When you I know what Cowboys fans want, and you know what they want. They want a 3-down back. They want somebody who can be a workhorse. They want somebody who can stay on the field, who can pass protect. One of the things that I look for the most out of running backs is somebody that is a great processor, because you can have the body, you can have the size, you can have the speed. You can even have all the athleticism in the world. However, if you can't process, then we got a problem. That was the issue out of a Trent Richardson from years ago. All the impressive traits, had all of the physical tools and skills, performed on a collegiate level. But when it was time to translate his game into the NFL, what got him the most was what was in between the ears. From that intellectual standpoint, seeing right before pre-snap what's happening in front of you. Then when it's time for the violence to occur when that ball is snapped, do you have that quick processing speed to now adjust on the fly? Yeah. Because you know how defenses in the NFL are. They scheme, they do things like disguises, and then you have those last second shifts. And so what I see out of the Ashton Jeanty is a running back that is an elite processor. Then he's got the body. He's got all of the athletic ability. He's got the long speed. He's a little hamster, it seems like. Defenders do not want to come in contact with this kid. Amongst all running backs in the entire collegiate realm, he literally is the third best when it came to stack boxes. Meaning, the defense knows what's about to happen. So they're trying to gear up to be able to stop Genty. Everyone in the country knew he was going to get the ball.
Right.
With those stacked boxes, he produced time and time and time again. Even in his game where most would have put it on display to say this is why he's not worth it, whenever Boise finally went and played big ball against Penn State, you still go and look at the amount of missed tackles that he created. You and I, for years, we got to see our rival, the New York Giants, play.
Right.
And who was the running back behind a god-awful offensive line and inconsistent quarterback play?
Saquon Barkley.
And when you looked at the nerd stats, I call it, with Barkley when he was with the Giants, you still saw this is an elite runner. He just doesn't have help. He has a below average offensive line for NFL standards. He often was being contacted before he even got to the line of scrimmage.
Right.
When you saw Genty play against Penn State in that game, that's often what happened. And he was still making the first guy miss and the second guy miss. And so whenever I look at that and I go, man, if you put a guy like him with that kind of contact balance, with that elusiveness, the quick decisions, the processing ability, the speed, and then just look at the impressive body of this guy, physically, step him off the bus and you're like, that's a running back.
Exactly.
But that's why I put him as running back 1 in this class, and not just because this might be a overall low class when it comes to blue chipper. I think any given year, you go back the last 10 years, Ashton Genty is going to be in that conversation as the running back 1.
Okay. So it's funny you bring that up, because that brings me to my next question. And I didn't talk about this with you before. So just naming some of the top running backs drafted high in the draft past 10 years: Zeke, Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley. Where would you put him at in the ranking of those guys? That's your top 5. Where would he be at within those 5?
Man, that's a great question. And I mean, throw Bijan in there even as a great running back who was drafted pretty high.
Yeah.
Man, I would put Genty above Gurley. One of the things about Gurley that I love, though, like him as a receiver, overall back, impressive body himself, but I still would have had Genty over Gurley. When looking at Ezekiel Elliott stacked with Genty, that one would have been a little bit tougher for me, because Zeke also had that NFL body. He was a workhorse. You saw
Zeke and Saquon are the difficult ones.
Yeah, you saw him that last year. The thing that concerned me about Zeke is exactly what we saw happen over his career. The first 3 years, phenomenal. 4th and 5th year, still productive back. And then it just dropped off the cliff. It's unique to be able to look at his statistics over his career and then just see from year by year a steady decline, like complete decline. It wasn't even a roller coaster. It wasn't a spark here or there. It was a steady decline. And you kind of knew that from his college days, where it's like, make someone miss. You don't have to be a battering ram. And then in pass protection, they kept him on the field. So a lot of mini collisions, like car collisions, for Zeke is what piled up. I think Ashton Genty is a bit more elusive than Zeke. They're right there with each other. I think still, though, prospect-wise, tit for tat, I may have had Zeke slightly above Genty because of that pass blocking ability. And I still thought Zeke was an effective guy if you put him in the pass game and give him those opportunities in that board and the pros.
All right, guys, let me give you guys a quick caveat. So I'm located in Memphis. We're surrounded by some severe weather right now. I see my internet's already trying to go a little spotty, so hopefully I don't fade out. But if you see me frozen, that's kind of the reason why.
We'll work with it.
All right, so let's go to your second running back, because this one, just talking to other people around Cowboys universe, this one kind of tricky. Some people don't have Hampton as high as you. Let us know why you have Hampton as high as you do.
All right, so coming into the season, Hampton was already on my top three running back list going into the 2024 season. You're talking about a guy that's 6 feet, 221 pounds. So that's like Zeke-esque far as the build. At the combine, ran his 4.46. You see that on tape. He's got the ability to burst through the hole, still got that long speed. You don't see him getting tracked down by people. I think he's that size, speed, power type running back that many Cowboys fans are going to want to see. So he's pretty mobile and agile. When it comes to yards after contact, when you stack all running backs and you put them in percentiles, if you got somebody in the 99th percentile, that's elite. That means like you're better than 99% of the running backs out there. He hits that 96th percentile rank. So we want that guy to be able to have contact balance. You don't want to go down on the first contact, and he's been able to run through tackles. I think he would be maximized best in an outside zone scheme where you can get him moving downhill so he can have that one cut ability, because he's not the most elusive guy when it comes to like creativity from a juking standpoint. He's not a jerky type mover, but when you get him downhill, one cut, he can make his decision. He's able to bounce if he needs to, but he's a very decisive runner. He has some patience to him. He's a grown man behind his pads running the ball. Now, the thing that I will say to caution just a little bit, when you start stacking him against the guys that are here in the top five, he saw the least amount of heavy boxes because North Carolina likes to spread it out. But what was unique to his game this year, though, is he was one of the only true talents on that team. And so they started to gear up towards him more. But over his career, he faced a little bit more lighter boxes than everybody. He's a hard runner. I don't think defenders like tackling this guy, and it often takes a couple of guys to get him down. So there's some gang tackling needed there. So that's why I got Omarion Hampton as my second guy overall. I think he's got all of the ability in the world. He's able to step up in pass protection. You don't have to take him off the field and protect him from it. So due to that overall full package, especially with some of the athletic markers that I see out of him, he's definitely worthy of a pick within that 20 to 30 range. I think he's going to go in that back end of the first round. 12 is a little too rich for me based on some of the things that I've seen from some of the draft nicks out there, well-known media scouts. He's kind of been a favorite pick for some of those guys in many of their mock drafts. But to me, when you work this thing out, I think 12 is going to be a little bit too rich for Hampton. I think if Ashton Jeanty is there, you would be hopeful that he's there. He's definitely worth that pick. But Hampton is one of those, can we trade back some? And he's now an option for me.
Okay. So let me ask you this question before we move on. Just to give people an idea of the gap between 1 and 2. If you had Jeanty as a 10, what would you rank Hampton? What would his rank be?
Ooh.
Is he still in the 9s, or is Jeanty that far ahead?
So you like on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10. Jeanty's a 10.
Jeanty is a 10. There's a considerable gap, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, Jeanty, if he's a 10, then I'm putting Hampton at like a 6.78.
You said what'd you say? I missed it.
I think I'd put him at like a 6.78.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's a big enough gap, I believe.
Okay.
I think Jeanty clear cut, not just best running back, but best prospect in this entire class.
I had it about 7.5, so we're on the same range. I didn't expect you to go 6, but yeah, it's a wide gap.
Yeah, it is.
And for people to say with Jeanty's gone, we could just take Hampton at 12. To me, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because 2 through 5, they're all in the same 6 range.
Exactly.
All right, before we move on really quick, we got Miller Corbett Jr. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you tuning in. We got Jeff Clark joining us. Jeff Clark, thank you for joining us as well. And Kelvin Hicks looks like a new name, so appreciate you joining us over on YouTube. And then we also have Keandre Ollison, another new name, so thank you for joining. And he has the comment Harvey over Johnson and Henderson with the eyes looking. That kind of takes me to my next question. does Harvey's age concern you? Because you just kind of talked about with with Zeke, how he fell off a cliff quickly. Harvey's already 24.
Yeah.
So does that bother you in terms of where you have him at as a prospect?
It does. And, right before we jumped on, I was like, man, I'm about to change my order up. and one of the reasons why I'm changing my order up is because I do think about that longevity.
Right.
Even though I'm still cut from the cloth of, draft a running back, use them for the 4 to 5 year range if you're able to get that 5th year out of them, and just churn it. Every other year, I'm trying to draft a running back like that's really able to make the roster, and then you just hope that they turn out to be a star. The thing about running back is I don't think the position is devalued anymore because of what we saw this past season and the kind of money that guys were getting, and you see what value they bring to the team. But the thing about it is just look at the supply out there. This draft, I think running back is probably arguably the deepest group. Defensive tackle got a little bit of a claim to that as well. Like we can argue that. But when you got so many good runners, it makes you excited to see, all right, what if I can bring them into the Cowboys system, and knowing what the new head coach is wanting out of the running game. He wants a complete running back. Everybody's going to say that. Some of that is coach speak, but I really do believe you got to start listening to what Shadi is saying, where I think they're going to value a guy who can help you in the passing game. Maybe he can go and line out wide and actually do some wide receiver type things, or to be able to get someone in open space and dump the ball to him, and now make your move, one cut, go. And I think RJ Harvey has some of that in this game. Now, the thing about him is I think you're going to have to couple him with another running back.
Exactly.
Because everybody else on this, the 1, 2, and 4th person on my list, I think those are 3 down backs. They can be that workhorse type for you.
I agree.
Harvey and Henderson, I don't think that's the case for either of them, just looking at their frame. RJ Harvey is 5'8", 205 at the combine. He ran a 4.4, great speed. You look at that lower body, reminds you of a Saquon type with those quads. He's a shifty guy. He's very nifty with the ball in his hands. He's scary in the phone booth type. Like if it's you one-on-one out in open field, forget about it. If he's getting up to the line with the ball and he's pressing the line, he's able to have that high processing that I talked about earlier, where he makes his decision and he's gone. The thing I would want him to do a little bit more is to churn some singles, churn some doubles.
Doubles, right. That's a good point.
Hit a home run with everything. And in college, you can outrun and out-athlete people. I think of like a Travis Hunter on the outside playing receiver. Yeah, you can out-athlete people, but at some point, you're going to have to take what's given to you at the running back spot. And so I think he has that ability. It's funny that I've seen it making its way that he's got some vision issues. I didn't see that at all. I just think he's just consistently wanting to make a big play.
Yeah, he breaks outside quite a bit.
Yeah. So he's putting himself in bad situations. To me, a bad vision guy is a guy that often is running into the back of the offensive line.
Yeah.
Like automatically, I know you got issues. His problem is he'll press the line. All right, I can make this 2 or 3 yard gain, but instead I'm about to bounce this back a little bit, curve it out wide, be susceptible to lose 5 yards, but man, I can hit the home run. And so this dude had 54 plays where he got over 10 yards. That's crazy. In his last 2 years, he's been a very productive dude. 1,416 yards rushing 2 years ago and 1,577 last year. But the problem is he's been in college for 6 years. He's a 24-year-old guy. He's previously torn his ACL back in 2021. He rehabbed extremely well. 2 years removed, here he is having 1,400 yards, and then 3 years removed having his 1,500 yards. Talking about one of the most elusive running backs, though, in the entire class, he's number 1. And I go back to talk about Saquon, where you're talking about a guy who's able to create on his own, no matter what the offensive line is doing. His offensive line was basically mid-level. I think it was like 53rd or 54th blocking offensive line in all of college. And yet here he is, the number one running back when it's eluding defenders. And whenever you put him out in routes, he was one of the best receiving running backs in the entire class. So when I just look at that overall package of him being able to be elusive, quick, decisive, a high processor, and with that home run speed, I want him to be coupled with somebody in that Dallas backfield. And I think you can have a little bit of what you see going on there in Detroit.
See it happen.
It happened. I don't know if the people heard all that.
Well, they could probably hear you until you
I went on, talked about Harvey.
Yeah, you were talking quite a bit. I caught most of it.
Good.
All right, so you brought up a point about how deep this class was. And thank you guys for sticking with us. Like I said before, I'm in Memphis right now. We're in the middle of a bunch of very serious storms, and my internet may go in and out.
Yeah.
So you brought in, and thank you, Eric. Eric said they heard all of it.
Good.
So, question, and I keep putting you on the spot with these.
So good.
Last year's top running back was Trey Benson. How many running backs in this class, if he were in this class, would be ahead of him? I think the number's about 7.
Ooh. Now, I'm not looking in hindsight.
I'm not either.
You know, he's got into the league and it hadn't quite worked out. And I think that processing part has been a struggle for him, which is why I'm high on it this year, because I was high on the Trey Benson last year, but just not pure hindsight looking. I would have put him probably at running back 4 in this class.
Okay. All right. There are a couple guys that I have a little bit higher than you, so that's probably why I have it closer to 7. But I can see that. So you put him above Caleb Johnson on your list right now?
No.
So he'd be 5.
No, because I'm about to change my list.
Okay.
Caleb Johnson would be my running back 3.
Okay.
And I'd put Harvey down, and then Harvey and Trayvon Henderson are going to be fighting with each other for that. And so I'll speak to Caleb Johnson here, since that's going to be the flip. All right. Caleb Johnson, bro.
Yeah.
I caught some later stuff on him, because the stuff that I had seen whenever I first made my list, I had watched his junior year. And I remember seeing him the year before that, and he really didn't get much shine. But when I went and I started checking my nerd stats, I didn't realize that of all running backs in this class, he faced the most stacked boxes in his career. 50% of his carries in his career were against stacked boxes. Now, we think that Ashton Jeanty probably would have been the number 1 guy, especially since everybody knew he was getting the ball and they ran him into the ground. But Jeanty faced stacked boxes 37% of the time. So Caleb Johnson had 13% more carries facing stacked boxes than Ashton Jeanty. Only 16% of his runs were against light boxes. So to see what he was able to do, the kind of production he was able to put up this past season, when everybody know how vanilla that Iowa offense is. Everybody know they're trying to run the rock. And seeing all that, I'm like, all right, he's also 6'1", 224. The thing that most people are down about him is because when you look at his testing numbers, him running a 4.57, running a 1.62 and a 10-yard split, Nothing is elite about that at all.
Right.
However, he's a reliable runner. Guy had only one fumble this past season. Then when you look at him, I love watching running backs to see how patient they are whenever now it's time to run the counter plays, the trap plays, those counter trays. He is the most patient runner of all of these guys in the draft, but he has enough quickness from a guy and good footwork from a guy that's big to be able to be decisive and then go.
Right.
So I like how he's patient behind his pads, allowing the blocks to set up. It's important to be able to let those offensive linemen do their thing. It's going to take him a little bit of time to build up to speed because he's not that fast, that bursty of a guy, but he's real smooth to me as a runner.
Yeah.
I don't think he's one of those dudes that's going to be scheme specific, meaning he's only going to be good in the power runs or those inside runs, or he's just a outside zone guy, one cut go. I think he's got the footwork, the patience, the initial burst to be able to be good in all of it, and he is a high processor. The one thing that I wish he did a little bit better, and I would be pushing him up to a running back 2 if it was the case, was use that size and that body overall to just be more violent and aggressive whenever you're pass protecting.
Yeah.
He's not a liability at all. You can keep him on the field to be a pass protector, but I want to see him hit people like Henderson hits people, because Henderson is an amazing pass protector. Or do like Ezekiel Elliott used to do and put guys in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And even like one of the smaller running backs in the whole league, the guy out there for the Los Angeles Rams, who's a former Notre Dame player, that kid will put you in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Even a running back in day 3 that I like, Kyle Monangai, going to put you in the dirt. You want to see a guy,
right?
You want to see a guy
he plays dirty.
Yeah, you want to see a guy that's 6'1", 224 pounds do the same because he looks impressive. And he's got the long limbs to be able to lock out having 33-inch arms. But overall, I love the patience. I love the runner. Like, there's no wasted motion, no wasted steps. He knows what he's doing. He's just a load. And I don't think defenders like tackling him either.
Yeah. Jeff asked, do you think he's like Emmett? And I didn't want to put this up because I hate putting those comparisons out there, especially not all-time greats.
Genty is like Emmett when you think about size and you think about that contact balance and you look at a dude and you're like, oh, he's not that big, but somehow he's hard to bring down. Now, I think Genty is much faster than Emmett, but I think that overall size, low center of gravity, being able to bounce off guys real quick with decision making, Genty has that. And then I saw somebody mention Le'Veon Bell, and I'm assuming they're talking about Caleb Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the match, but when you see that black and yellow and you see the size, yeah, I get it. And also, when like Omari and Hampton, everybody's comparing him to
the running back from Pittsburgh,
DeMarco Murray.
I've been hearing what's the running back? The one with the Pittsburgh and now is with the Chargers.
Mendenhall?
No, the one that just went to the Chargers. From Pittsburgh.
He's a California kid, played with Alabama. Oh, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, you know, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Alabama. Anyway, a lot of people I've seen comparing Amari and Hampton to
Najee Harris.
Murray. Najee, yeah. Najee was like number 1 running back out of Cali and then went. But yeah, I just don't see the DeMarco Murray stuff out of Hampton other than the white tape and the white shoes and the duck feet. Like, I see all that, but as far as style of runner, I'm not so for sure about that.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Travion Henderson. Maybe the most explosive on this list. What do you got on him?
The thing that concerns me is the early returns on him is not what you expected. A guy that came much ballyhooed out of high school. They had big plans for him at Ohio State. He just couldn't stay on the field. There were some injury things going on early in his career. He started slow out the gate. But these last 2 years, especially this last year, is now where he was put on display. And for him to do what he did this past season when Quinshon Judkins transferred from Ole Miss, many probably would have thought, oh, that's going to bump Henderson down on the depth chart.
I know.
Now Judkins is going to get to shine, and that's going to impact Henderson's draft stock. But it seemed to be the opposite, because whenever you saw them running together side by side or one play after the next, Henderson seemed to be the guy who was more elusive. Henderson seemed to be the guy with the deep speed, who had that initial burst, who had some kind of imagination and creativity to his runs. He seemed to be the more exciting guy because, and I'll just go ahead and talk about Judkins and put them together in a sense.
All right.
Judkins, because he's 6 on my list. They're
I'll go ahead and go to 6 through 10.
Yeah, they're right there with each other. Judkins is a guy that I was wanting to see him do a little bit more, have a little bit more wiggle. Show me like your athleticism, some things that you did at Ole Miss that should be able to translate over to Ohio State with all the imagination that they have with Chip Kelly being an offensive coordinator. He's going to put you in positions to succeed. And then you got all the other talent around you, especially at receiver. You're going to be able to run against light boxes, which both of them did. And then Judkins, you look at him size-wise, he's got the prototypical running back size, being 6 feet, 221 pounds. It's like chiseled out of stone. One of the most impressive-looking guys in this entire class. Henderson is the smaller slider guy, being 5'10", 202 pounds. That's small for a running back. He doesn't look it. It's like he's built a certain way. But you put them together and you think, all right, Judkins is going to be the guy. But instead, Judkins was more of that, meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm going to just run right into the defender, no elusiveness to him, north, south. Then in that Notre Dame game, he broke for a nice run and got tracked down. So it's like, man, the deep speed isn't there. He's good from right at the line of scrimmage to that first 30.
Yeah.
After that, there's no other gear.
Right.
You have a chance to be able to use some pursuit angles on him, be able to catch him. And I'd seen even some of the smaller off-ball linebacker types be able to track him down.
Yeah.
However, Henderson, there's no tracking him down. That's elite speed. That's burst. That's quickness. He's got some power behind it. He ran the 4.43 and the 40. Judkins ran his 4.48, but I think Henderson can run his in pads while Judkins had to do some training to get to that point. And then the thing that sets Henderson apart from many running backs in his class is that pass blocking ability, but then also he's an elite receiver. He literally gets out there and he lines up as a receiver, and he's able to literally run routes and actually catch the ball. Whenever the ball is outside of his frame, he's able to extend and get it, whether it's low or high. He's unafraid. Henderson is a pretty sweet prospect, but the thing that still concerns me is that early wear, that early adjustment period, and I wonder if he's going to be able to do the same thing in the pros. And I think the fact that Judkins came and spelled him a lot, it shows that maybe he just needs to be a part of a tandem.
Right. He definitely.
I don't think he's going to be that workhorse type. But Judkins has the size to be able to do that.
Yeah. All right. So we're at 35 minutes. We're pretty much at number 6. We have a couple of hundred viewers, but we only have 3 likes. So I'm just asking you guys to get those likes up. Let's get those likes to match those views. Also, for all my people on X, once the show ends, make sure you go over to YouTube, find me at Bluff City Cowboys, hit that subscribe button. All right, so Don, we're down to the last 4 running backs, and this is where I think you would probably get a lot more criticism, because a lot of these names are not names that you hear throughout the content creator networks or on the big 4, the 4-letter channels. So talk a little bit about Samson, and then let's go to these last three because I really like LaQuint Allen, and I know a lot of other people don't. I'm not as familiar with Blue and Tootin. You guys have really been putting me on him, and I can kind of see why you got him where you are. But just touch on Samson quickly, then hit these last three because I think those are the highest point of contention.
Yeah, I'll just read through the notes.
Okay.
Dylan Sampson, 5'8", 200 pounds. I think he is one of those high processors in this class. If you want to see some impressive work out of him, go watch his Georgia game. I think he was the best running back in the SEC, which is saying
Oh,
something.
wow.
Now, I'm not saying he projects as the best on the next level, but what he was able to do for Tennessee this season,
Yeah.
he was one of the best, if not the best, running back in all of the SEC. So just go check his numbers. He should have been, that Doak Walker finalist type. It's just the fact that he's got to be in a class or in a year where you got a guy who threatened Barry Sanders' all-time record. So that was just unfair. I think he can bounce it outside. He's got great acceleration through the hole. He's a creative runner. Overall, he had 1,532 yards rushing the ball for a Tennessee team in the SEC. That's impressive. But one of the things, being a smaller guy at 5'8", 200 pounds, he nearly had 1,000 yards. 1,000 of his yards of the 1,500 came after contact.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some contact balance to him. And then he kind of reminds me a little bit of a former Tennessee running back who now plays with the Saints, who is one of those guys who's elusive with that ability to have some contact balance. He's not the complete athlete like that, but I like the wiggle. He's in all the remaining guys reminds me of like that Henderson type and RJ Harvey, where you're going to want to group them with somebody that's completely different than them, to have a little bit of a thunder lightning type.
Yeah.
And then LaQuint Allen. All right, so
Syracuse.
LaQuint Allen is an interesting one for me.
Yes.
And I might have him too high because there's a certain type that I like. One of the flavors of running back I like is a smaller guy, a little more of what you would call a diminutive running back. That's going to be your Bashaw Tootin. I look for one every single year. But then I like the type of running back who can be a receiver or somebody that may have been a former receiver, maybe in high school, or a quarterback type. They just understand the receiving part of the game, knowing how to run routes, because then I think you can maximize that when you put them in a league, because it's a passing league.
Yeah.
That's what LaQuint Allen is. I believe he is the best receiving running back in his class.
No question.
Which means something, because the kid out there in SMU was a former receiver himself and moved down to running back to be able to help the Mustangs. But LaQuint is one of those dudes, sure-handed, literally put him out on the outside. He can run all the routes you want. He's a decisive runner, more of a quick one-cut type. He runs upright, kind of gets some of that corrected, but tough as nails type dude. And so for him to have the kind of body that he has, which looks more receiver-like, he's actually strong in between the boxes. So I just love that talent. I think he's probably going to be around a third, fourth round player. Just like Samson, it'd be nice to get him in the third round. Judkins, you'd be lucky and blessed if he's there at 76 and he's still available in needing a running back. That would be one of those value picks there. But LaQuint Allen, love what he brings to the game in the passing round. Then Tootin. This is one I posted about him all the way back in December. I felt that the draft community would be late on him. I also thought the draft community would overlook him because of the size.
You were right, both accounts.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Virginia Tech just doesn't get the shine that they used to back in the Beamer days where he was at his height. But the thing about Tootin that I like is the speed. Him and Henderson got that breakaway speed, and I think Tootin is actually faster. He ran a 4.32 in the combine.
Mm-hmm.
So he blew it up where people were put on notice. He's only 5'9", 206, so you talk about a smaller guy. He forced probably, I think he forced the most missed tackles of everybody in college, and he had an elite amount of missed tackles. So every third time he ran the ball, he caused somebody to miss him, and that's doing it, outside of being dependent on what the offensive line is doing. I think he's agile. I think he's going to be best maximized like what Denver Broncos used to do with Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis was amazing on those outside zones.
Mm-hmm.
Let him find and pick whatever hole he wants, and then he's going to burst through it and he's gone. That's what you really want to do out of Tootin. Whenever you look at how he did on those outside runs, every other outside run, so 50% of his runs, he's breaking that first tackle and he's getting beyond. One of the things I wish he would do better is be a better securer of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Last 2 seasons, he's got 8 fumbles. You got to be more secure than that. And then when you go back and watch him with Atlanta A&T, he did really good. Or not Atlanta A&T. It was, who was he with? Oh man, it was one of those. His first 2 years, he had some like plays in receiving. He was getting the ball out of the backfield.
North Carolina A&T.
North Carolina A&T, that's who it was. Like they passed him the ball, so I'm able to see it. But Virginia Tech just didn't have any creativity to get him the ball in the backfield as a receiver. But man, kid can fly. I think he's a pretty quick processor as well. When he see it, he explodes. He's gone. I like the compact build, the suddenness out of him. So he's one of those dudes where I think, man, get him at 76, and that's great value as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've gone through the top 10. I know a lot of people watching kind of disagree with 8 through 10.
Big time.
So let me know who your 11 and 12 are, just so I can kind of gauge who your next guys are.
Man, it's gonna be hard.
Okay.
I keep toggling. I think JD Giddens.
Yes, that's mine.
I think Giddens out of Kansas State is going to have some value for the Cowboys on their board. Yeah. Again, not one of those guys who's flashy, doesn't have a lot of deep speed, but I think he's a decisive runner. He's patient. He picks his spots. And then, we ended up getting his offensive line coach.
Right.
So they should know him extremely well. I think he would be great in the Cowboys system. The other shocker that most people probably wouldn't expect from me, I think Ollie Gordon is going to redeem himself. Oklahoma State just fell off the cliff this past year. And then he had a little bit of his legal troubles before the year with I think it was a DWI or DUI, one of the two. But overall, when I go back and I watch him 2 years ago, he was a guy that many people consider being running back 1 until Genty just came out of nowhere and did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I like his size. I think, again, you draft him, you bring him in and get somebody else that's just a different flavor, he would be a great value for the Cowboys. So I'm not a scatterboo guy.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. Then Mendoza actually stole the question I was about to ask. But since you brought up Scatterboo, I don't have Scatterboo in my top 15 running backs. What about you?
I don't either.
Okay. I know a lot of people have him at 3 or 4, and I have no clue why. Quickly, what is it about Scatterboo's game that you don't think will translate to the NFL?
I just haven't found a historical match. I think he's such an outlier, and I'm not a guy that goes for the outliers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for the exception to the rule. Man, I wish him well. I want him to be able to go and shine. I'm not a hater of anybody in the draft. My MO is always to be able to project these guys positively and spotlight what they do best. I've never really been a cons guy, but I know you got to do that. You got to bring it up. But I just don't think that his overall athleticism is going to be something that, and being that size is something that it's going to translate well into the pros. Sometimes you're just a great high school athlete. You're going to have all the numbers. Sometimes you're a great collegiate athlete. You're going to be great. But to go from one level to the next as you try to project, I just have so many questions about it. And again, when I check the historical stuff, I don't know. I haven't seen that style, that type, that size, all that combination go and do well in the league. But he might be the exception to the rule.
It could be. All right. So two more questions, then we'll go to defensive tackles. So Mendoza actually brought up two guys. One of them I really like that nobody talks about, and that's Jarquez Hunter from Auburn. I love the explosiveness. I love the ability to break tackles. To me, he has 90% of what Henderson has, but he's not getting the love that some of these other guys are. What do you think about these two backs, Jarquez Hunter, Jaquindon Jackson, that Mendoza brought up?
I'm not as familiar with Jaquindon. I know
I'm not either. Mendoza.
I know he's a Mendoza guy, but Hunter is again. It's out of mind, out of sight. You look at Auburn, it's like, all right, Auburn, come on, what are you doing? And they need some offensive linemen to be able to help that program because they do got some skilled players. And he was one this past season who did extremely well. I think he's one of those no-nonsense type of runners. He's not going to go do a bunch of fancy stuff in the backfield. He's got a more of a compact build. He's shown that he's got some speed, just straight at you, run right into your face. He's a tough guy. I think he reminds me of who the Cowboys just have at running back who eclipsed 1,000 yards.
Tony Pollard?
No, sir.
Really? He reminds you of Rico?
Rico with vision.
Okay. I said he reminded me of Tony Pollard. That's why I thought you were going.
Yeah, I just think, body-wise, I think Pollard's just a little bit more angular, more
he's a
stretched out. And then he's more of a lot of upright runner. But Rico is a tough guy. He wants to run hard. He just don't have the vision. Like he's not a high processor. I think I think Hunter definitely has some of that. So he's right there. If we had that 4th round pick, he's one of those dudes where it's like all day, every day, turn in that card.
All right. So Jeff has posted this question a couple times. He wants to know your thoughts of double dipping at running back. So if Genty's gone, we take a guy at 2. How would you feel about taking another guy with one of those 3 5th rounders?
I'm looking at triple dip.
This would be the draft to do it,
man. So the reason I say that is, undrafted free agency, right. the priority guys, get you one of those in that part.
Yeah,
because it seems like every year there's a great running back that comes out of that part. So that's why it's a triple dip. But really, to double dip, I think at any point, rounds 1, 2, and 3, it makes sense, especially if Genty is there at 12.
Yeah.
Day 2, anybody on my list that I've presented, that's really, I need to move Tootin above Allen.
Okay.
So Tootin, Sampson, Judkins, and on up, any of them make sense on day 2. And then your 4th round, if we had one, man, there's just a plethora of guys. Right. So yeah, you
haven't even talked about Damian Martinez yet, and some people really like him. I know Knicks does.
Yeah, Knicks love him. I think they like the size.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that I think he studied some Le'Veon Bell tape and tries to do a little bit of the Le'Veon Bell. He wants to be patient. He just doesn't have that burst to be able to do what Le'Veon Bell does. But he seems to see it. He's decisive. He goes for it. He was a good back in that Miami system.
Yeah, and like Mendoza brought up Jaquindon Jackson, I personally feel like if Rocket Sanders didn't leave Arkansas and chase the bag, he would have been rated a lot higher being a part of that Arkansas system instead of Jaquindon. So that's another guy who runs a 4.4, 230 pounds, who you'll probably be able to get late day 3, maybe even undrafted because the position's so deep.
You just made Spoonie Knight saying that.
Oh, really? He's a Rocket guy?
All 2024 draft, leading up to it, he was wanting Rocket, but then whenever you had to declare, he didn't. Spoonie was heartbroken. But this whole season, he's been wanting Sanders to be a Cowboys pick, and to possibly get him on day 3 would be nice. And Rashard Smith, he is another. Him and LaQuint, I think, are the best 2 receiving running backs in this class, because Smith was a former running back. The kid is all types of athletic.
Yeah.
Just go turn on that SMU tape, and they used him time and time again. And they got a really nice mobile elite quarterback too. So to watch them 2 in the backfield do the damage they did for SMU this year was something to marvel.
All right. Last question, then we'll move on to defensive tackles. We've thrown out a bunch of running back names. Is there a name that fans should be aware of that nobody's talking about? Is it one of the names we just mentioned, or do you have another name that the draft is so deep he may be a forgotten name, but if he gets an opportunity in the league, he may make some noise?
I think the fact that, we got the Kansas State offensive line coach. We also, as a receiving room, they have a receivers coach from Oregon.
Okay.
And so I think we need to start looking out west to the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
And looking at that Oregon program, because I believe they have about 10 prospects that got draftable grades, and Jordan James running back is one of them. And so the fact that you had a coach that was in that Oregon system who should know him intimately, I'd be looking for him if he's there on day 3, because I think that's a nice running back that you can get. He's a small guy, compact guy. He's not going to be a workhorse, but again, in between the tackles, knows what he's doing. I think you need to look out for Jordan James.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and then we'll move to defensive tackles. I think if you look at free agency and listen to what the coaches are saying, they've kind of tipped their hand a little bit about the type of running back they like. They want a guy who can run between the tackles with a little bit of elusiveness. They want a running back, like you mentioned earlier, that can help in the passing game. Because people look at Javonte Williams and think he's just a big bruiser, but he has 40 catches a year. Right. And then we all know what Miles Sanders did while he was with the Eagles. So that's definitely the type they're looking for. So if a guy like Genty's not available, you can look at some of those guys, like you mentioned, like a LaQuint Allen, Henderson, guys like that, who can be a bit of a dual threat. Even Rashard Smith later in the draft, guys that you should be aware of that Dallas may be interested in outside of the names that we've been consistently seeing thrown in our faces.
Right.
All right, guys. So we're at 53 minutes. For you guys who are new to the show, we try to give you all of the information we can within an hour and a half at the most. So we got about 35 minutes to talk about defensive tackles. Dom's put together a great list, so I'm sure we'll be able to get through these a lot more, because defensive tackles aren't the big hot topic of discussion like running backs and wide receivers are.
Right.
We have 100 people watching on X. So once again, guys, once the show ends, be sure to go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of other great guests joining us, and we got a lot of great content for you guys leading into the offseason. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball, because there are a couple of names I'm not familiar with, but it's a lot of very talented prospects on this list. Jeff has one more running back question. How many backs do you think we keep on the roster? I think it's 4.
I think they're going to keep 4.
Because we're going to have one on, Deuce is going to be on the practice squad. I don't care what anybody says.
I think they might end up keeping 3. And then they'll try to stash a couple, of course, on the practice squad.
Of course, yeah. All right, so let's start with the first name. Let me go ahead and throw the question out that I've had, and I've had other people ask me. You got a defensive tackle from Michigan. He played the season in the 320s. He came in the combine at 295. Why is he number 1 on your list? Because when you hear that, fans get triggered and they think about Mozzie.
Man, Here's my thing about this draft, all in all.
Okay.
I've been saying it for 2 years now, especially. I don't care about the high ceiling guys. I like high floor guys.
I agree.
I want safer picks for the Cowboys. I want the guys that are proven. Like, I want to see you do things and see it consistently. I don't want to just see flashes. I want to see a guy with a high motor. I want to see a guy with heart. I want to see a guy that's selfless. But then I do want to see you be able to have somewhat of a ceiling, because you do have to make that jump to the next level, and you got to bring some more and have some more within you athletically. Mason Graham, over and over, out of all of the defensive tackles in this class over a multi-year stretch, has proven to be the best defensive tackle in the class. The thing that is concerning, though, being a Cowboys fan, it's not the Michigan, it's not the M on his chest. The concern for me is you showed up to the combine being much, much smaller than anybody expected. You're listed from 1 year to the next being 300 in the tens or teens, and then 320. And then now at the combine, you're measuring in at 290. That's the problem about the Michigan guy that I'm concerned about, being measured one thing, and then now you're showing up with the official measurements being significantly lower.
Yeah.
However, I look back to last year's draft, and there was a defensive tackle out of Florida State that I fell in love with. I actually got to meet Braden Fisk.
Braden Fisk, yeah.
And I cowered out because I'm like, all right, he doesn't have the size. But when you turn on the tape and you watch both of those guys operate, it's just consistent, high motor, energy, getting after it, moving up and down the line, not giving in. So Mason Graham is my defensive tackle one in his class. I think he would be one of those ideal picks if he's there at 12. I don't think he's going to be, but if he is there, it's going to be hard for me to pass him up.
The fans are going to lose their minds if that happens.
Man, and the reason why I would say that is we know Dallas is in need of some interior help. Definitely. And for years, I've been wanting Osa, since he became a Cowboys player, to finally have that guy to bring in with him who you want to get 50% of the snaps. The thing about the Cowboys, and I'll say this every time you want me to talk about defensive tackles, especially with Cowboys, they don't play a high volume of snaps. They're going to rotate a lot. You go look at the defensive tackles across the league who are the number one guy on their team. They're getting 70 sometimes 80% of the snaps. The highest that we get is right at 59. 59% of the snaps, and Osa is that guy. And then our next best guy is eating up 48, 49% of those snaps. And then you look at the caliber player that those dudes are at our next best defensive tackle has been. So if you can bring somebody to couple with Osa, a guy like Graham, I think that's a game changer for the Cowboys' entire defense. Okay. So building from the inside out and then doing it from the front as well is what they need.
All right. So Jeff brought the point, not two Michigan guys at the top.
Well,
I really like Harmon. So I'm just curious, why do you have two Michigan guys at 1 and 2?
So both Grant and Harmon are a little bit of one-year wonders.
I could agree with that.
Harmon, when he was with Michigan State 2 years ago, he was more of a run stopper, big body guy, kind of a unique build, like a bigger upper body, smaller lower body. Not quite like Walter Nolan, far as misshapen, just a unique
we'll talk about that
size profile. But Grant, with the girth, with the size that he has, he's truly a massive dude. So he's going to show up 330 plus pounds. He might even dip into the 340s, and he hustles like he's active as a 330, 340 pounder guy. There's no sluggish out of him. You go back 2 years ago, how he's running a running back down from behind. Like, this dude is a guy that I would love to see playing that nose tackle position for the Cowboys and consistently doing it, playing in the one. Harmon, I think, can definitely do that. I just think Grant can do it a little bit better. I do think Harmon is the better pass rusher of the two. I think Grant, though, is a better pocket collapser where he's able to push guys more into the lap of the quarterback, where Harmon now is trying to develop to just elude guys. And he did a pretty good job this past season doing it. That Oregon defensive coaching staff was able to maximize his talent. But they're neck and neck right there. I could flip those two all day long, and it makes sense. And I think they give you that ability to be able to play anywhere from that 4-eye all the way to the 0.
Yeah, I get a lot of Chris Jones vibes from Harmon when I watch him play. Just the build and how he can rush and play the run from 3 positions on the inside to the out to the 5 spot. So I just really like him. But I do see why you have Grant that high, because he really is. He's probably, to me, the best nose tackle. I like Graham a lot. The 295 scares me, though. Something's going on there, and I try not to think about Mozzie.
You know what I think he did?
What?
I think, my whole thing about Mozzie was I think he was trying to lose weight, get down. They want him to be a defensive tackle with more of a 3-tech type. But I think he went too aggressive. And it's really not that hard for a guy that's already 320, 330 pounds to lose 40 pounds.
Especially when you're an athlete and you're burning a ton of calories.
And I could do that in a month.
Yeah.
Just by walking and stop drinking soda. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
But I think for Graham, I think he was trying to get down to produce better numbers at the combine. But you'll see him swell back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's still concerning though, just because it is another Michigan guy losing some weight.
Yeah, his natural weight will probably be around the 310s. Yep. So before we go down the list, we have 2 people back to back who asked the same question. So Jeff and Mendoza asked, why no Alfred Collins love? I was a little surprised myself that he's not even on the list. So I'm curious.
I'm gonna call you out, Bluff. You put the wrong list up there.
I did?
Yeah, you got my older list.
Oh my God, my fault.
But it's all good.
So
he would be defensive tackle 8 on this list.
Okay.
And then you just bump down Alexander and bump down Norman Lott. So Norman Lott would be 10. CJ West and Jordan Phillips would be 11 and 12.
Okay.
And so the thing about Alfred Collins, another guy that I was pretty early on, not that matters, but the thing I liked about him is I knew him when he was coming out of high school. He was one of those 5-star athletes that everybody was making over. Here locally, we know him because he played every single sport. It was just a stud. He was a star. And then you go to University of Texas, and we're all Texas people here. But the problem I had with him is it took him a long time to finally make his way up the depth chart. Like, he got passed over pretty quickly by guys who came in after him, or even guys that came in with him. And I never saw him turn into this stud athlete from an athletic standpoint. So he's missing some of that. Now, you brought up the body type and saying that Derek Harmon reminded you of Jones. I think Alfred Collins' body style, body-wise, reminds me of the same guy.
I can see that because Harmon's a little bit small in the lower body. So
Collins
does fit him a little bit more.
He's like, he's well balanced whenever you look at him.
Yeah.
And then he's a long athlete too, and he's already 6'5", and he's weighing in over 320 pounds. I think he's going to be that typical, run stuffer. I don't think you're going to get anything out of him as far as a pass rusher. I don't think he'll turn into that type of player. But that's the kind of thing that Dallas needs. With a 3rd-round pick, if he's there at 76, that's great value. And so I would definitely love to take him there. I think he's a smart player. I just wish he had a little bit more athleticism. And in fact, if I could just meld him and Vernon Broughton, who plays with him on that same interior, it's like, man, you'd have you'd have a second round pick, maybe even a first round pick. But yeah, I definitely love the player.
All right, Mendoza, I'm seeing all the names you're putting up there. I put them up there close to the end. Let's go through the list because number 4 on the list is an enigma. He could go top 20. He could go early day 3. Walter Nolan. What do you like about him, and where do you have him at in terms of where he gets drafted?
Walter Nolan was a former number 1 overall player coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Texas A&M. Speaking of Texas A&M, there's another player on this list, Shamar Turner from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Texas A&M for a second.
Okay.
If you're a defensive tackle and you want to shine, College Station ain't the place to be. Just don't go to College Station. I don't know what it is about that system. They have pro coaching that's there. So you would wonder, like, all right, these guys are definitely going to be able to be built up. They'll be developed, but it just doesn't happen. So whenever he was able to leave and then go to Ole Miss, and then this year you see what he's able to do, I was shocked to see at his size be as good as a run defender as he is.
Mm-hmm.
He actually may be the best run defending defensive tackle in his whole entire class.
I agree.
But then when you look at the upside because of his athleticism, thinking that he would be the perfect 3 tech in a system,
mm-hmm.
or even if you're more of that 3-4 front and you're looking at playing him at the 5 or that 4-eye, like
mm-hmm.
it makes sense to me. I see a lot of upside out of him, but I think he's got a good floor. And when I see that type of guy and you put him in a league and let him get some old man strength to him, I'm higher on Walter Nolan than most people. I don't see a lot of Cowboys fans talking about him, except for they don't want to see him at pick 12. Like that would be a letdown.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put him at 12 either, but I don't think he's going to last till 44. So he's going to go somewhere in that end of the first, early second range.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm all over the place with him. I mean, I like him as a player, but I've heard some interesting things from Ole Miss about his personality.
Yeah.
I just leave it at that.
Yeah. You know, I love my car thief types, and I love my choir boy types. I always talk about the car thieves and choir boys.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas has drafted a lot of choir boys.
Yeah.
Mild, meek, docile types. They're not going to bring any issues. But I want some car thief types.
Yeah.
Those rugged guys, y'all call it. They got the dog in them.
Mm-hmm.
But Walter Nolan ain't that car thief type personality. I think there's am I feeling myself type.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I've heard.
Coddled type. And I just don't go over well. But what's interesting, though, in the last few drafts, guys who've gotten that label of had that concern, like, does he really love football? Are they feeling themselves too much?
Yeah.
Them dudes been balling out.
Yeah,
I think about Kayvon Thibodeau. He was another one. Just a weird personality.
Yep.
I remember that national championship that year, they put him on that telecast, and he was talking about brand. He was talking about, all the stuff other than football, but he still goes out there and balls. So you still do got to consider those character concerns. But Walter Nolan, what he has as a football player, I like the upside, but also like that floor.
Yeah. All right. So next up on the list is Tyleik Williams, who will probably, outside of Grant, him and Grant are neck and neck for the biggest defensive tackle. Williams kind of that bowling ball type guy. Why do you have him over some more athletic defensive tackles that are below him?
Yeah, because Tyleik isn't going to be that 3-tech type that's flash and dash. He's just meat and potatoes type on the interior, but he's good at what he does. And he's extremely active. That's what sets him apart from some of the other 1-techs within this class. and then I've seen him do it over a 2 year period. In fact, if Tyleek would have come out last year, I would have put him as a second round player.
Okay.
And then he didn't lose any of that steam for me. So I still would put him in the second round. He had a little bit of a scare whenever he ran his 40 the other day at the pro day, where he went down, looked like the knee buckled. You need to check in on that to see how he's doing. So he may be sliding because of that if he is hurt. But man,
Yeah.
I just like what he does from a play-to-play basis.
I
You can
agree.
keep him on the field. He's a high volume snap getter. Again, playing that one tech, playing the nose tackle. He's a guy that whenever offensive linemen are blocking down on him and whenever they're double teaming him, he knows how to put that knee into the ground
Mm-hmm.
and hold up to the pressure.
Yeah.
He's not being displaced off the line of scrimmage. In fact, he's resetting the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. He's extremely compact.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for, a guy who's able to be tough. Whenever you're looking for a center, you want a center that's violent, that's mean, that's got the nasty in him.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a nose tackle perspective, you need that same thing. In a one tech, you need that same thing. And that's what Tyleek Williams brings.
Yeah. I like him because just like you said, he's a high effort guy. He's a high volume guy. If you have a concern that Mozzie's not giving you what you're looking for as a nose tackle, you can easily throw him in the rotation, even as a rookie. And he's going to at least bring the effort up. He can maybe rub off on Mozzie as another young guy.
In the same draft, and this ain't hindsight, Mozzie would be defensive tackle 8 on my list right now.
So he'd be below Collins?
He'd be below Collins.
Oh, wow. That says a lot about the depth of this draft.
Yeah.
All right. So next defensive tackle, TJ Sanders, South Carolina. I've seen a couple of people post about him in the comments. Another one of those South Carolina guys. What do you have on him?
He makes me mad when I watch him because it's like, bruh, I see you flash. He's a flasher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I see you doing rip moves. I see you doing club moves. I see you beating guys one-on-one. You definitely a 3 tech. I've seen you do it against the best talent. I don't know what it is about South Carolina whenever they play whoever that top team is on their calendar, but they do it every year. They'll show up, and then they'll play games against guys that are their equivalent or maybe below them, and then they just don't produce.
Yeah.
And you see him in games of like, all right, you're going up against some studs and you kicking some butt, but you're flashing here and there, and then you just get lost. So I'm just like, all right, is this coaching? Because it's not effort, because he's a high effort guy. What is it? So he's definitely a high ceiling type dude. He could be a boom bust type, because I'm still saying in the second round, you're picking a player, especially at 44. That's a top 50 pick. I'm going to need you to come with it and produce pretty early. And if you're not, and of course, if you don't pan out, then we're considering you a bust. So he's got some boom bust out of him. He's in the 290s, so he's a little bit slight.
Yeah.
But, man, he's like piano. He can go up and down the line. If he can somehow maximize that talent from a play-in, play-out perspective, he's one that you could be looking up 3 years from now and going, man, that's another Osa Odigizua type. Picked in the 3rd round and just gets better and better as he gets older and gets some more strength on him and gets used to the physicality of the NFL.
You know what's interesting? You talk about that. Everything you said, I would have applied to Shamar Turner.
It's you stole my note. You stole my note. That's why I got them right there, back to back. It's the same exact player. And again, it frustrates me because of the A&M system. Like, they had him, I can't remember the snap totals, but when you look over a 2-year stretch, how often they put him on the edge, then how often they flipped him from the edge 2 years ago, made him play a lot of nose tackle this year, and he's 290 pounds, 6'3". Why are you playing him so much in the 1 and at the 0? Let him operate from that 3 all the way out there to that 5.
Right.
Even the 7, but not the wide 9 like they did, and then all of a sudden throw him all the way down to 0. That just don't make sense to me. Like, what are we doing, Texas A&M? But yeah, the same thing that I said about Sanders, you can apply that to Shamar Turner. There's no reason to keep going over that, but extremely athletic kid. And I really want to see when somebody utilizes him properly, maximize what he brings to the table. Again, I think in that third round, that would be a great spot to be able to pick a player like that. The problem, though, with a lot of Cowboys fans listening to this is they're going, we don't need a three tech, though.
Mm-hmm.
We need more of a bigger body guy. But I would say caution from just trying to look for one type, because really with that high volume, the way that they churn
Rotate.
guys, you're still going to need another effective three tech. And I don't think Solomon Thomas is enough to make me go, okay, we got enough with those two. Give me any type. Just give me a ball player.
Yeah.
I can go find another massive guy to be able to help me take on those snaps from that one tech position.
Yeah. Now, so you have him at 8, but he's really 9. Darius Alexander, I'm not really familiar with him. So what can you tell me about him as a player?
So RJ Harvey, he old dude.
Uh-huh.
Darius Alexander is older.
Wow. Okay.
That brother 26.
Well, defensive tackles can play have a much longer lifespan, so that doesn't concern me as much.
Exactly. And when you look at Darius Alexander over his career playing with Toledo, you can see him just getting better. And I think that age has definitely helped him. He's already a strong player. I believe he has the absolute best club move in this entire draft.
Okay.
Ain't nobody got the club move that he has. And I think overall hand strength and grip, he put it on display at the not the combine.
The Senior Bowl?
Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put it on display at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's going to be more of a three tech type. You don't look at his numbers and see great production. And you really would love to see that coming out of Toledo. I think he had about 4 sacks this past season. But I just like that violence, the tenacity that he brings. I think you can start to unlock something out of him, put him in a rotation. He'll be a good player. Don't give him a high volume, but put him in there on obvious passing downs and let him do some work. But I think he is an effective run stuffer if you need him to do that. You don't have to take him off the field. But if you really, really want to get him going, get him with somebody to learn like a third move, because he got the club, he's got a nice rip. But if somehow he can find a way to get maybe that third move and then continue to build his base to be that foundationally strong guy, now you're getting a complete player there. And so he's another one. Third round would make a great world of sense for me.
Okay. So we're at an hour, 18 minutes. We'll get it in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Let's talk about Omar Norman Lott, who would be essentially your number 10 guy on your list.
Yeah. So Norman Lott is one of my favorite outside of the top 75 players.
Okay.
And he's one that I was on early. And anybody that knows me, I follow Baylor, I follow Notre Dame. Then my other team is Tennessee.
Yeah.
I've just liked Tennessee ever since I was a kid. Something about that song Rocky Top, man, it gets to me every time. But Omar Norman Lott, I think he is going to be one of those rotational guys. You really don't want him run defending at all. But when I go and look at all of the nerd stats, like you could just see it. Like, I don't know what it is about Tennessee. They love the NASCAR package. They had a lot of good defensive tackles, good defensive line players in general. So they really have a heavy rotation. When I looked at their numbers, I don't think they had a single defensive tackle who got over 30% of the snaps.
Wow.
That's how much they rotated.
That's a heavy rotation.
That's a heavy rotation. And so Omar Norman Lott, I think overall had somewhere like 200 snaps for the whole season. But out of those 200 snaps, you're talking about a guy who's getting in the backfield at 19.4% of the time that he was on the field. So, definitely was well rested, but definitely got after the quarterback whenever he had his limited opportunities. and he was a backup. And so that's unique for me to put somebody like that this high on the list. But if you're looking for a disruptive guy from that 3 tech position, and we know that teams are starving for that interior pass rush, Omar Norman Lott is that guy that I'm circling to go, man, if they somehow get a 4th-round pick, even if they already got a defensive tackle, he's one that I would consider as a double dip type.
Okay. All right. So just hearing you talk, you keep throwing out 2nd round, 3rd round, day 2 guy. So do you think all 10 of your running backs and 9 of your 10 defensive tackles are going to make up the top 95 picks or whatever the top 3 rounds are? You think we're looking at a quarter of the draft in the first 2 days being running back and defensive tackle?
I think it's going to be surprising to people because a lot of people think a lot of running backs are going to be taken in the first 2 rounds.
I don't think that.
I don't think that. I look at the history to show that the magic number by the end of round 2 is 4 to me.
Exactly.
Date or round 3, I don't know. Take a pick, but I doubt 6 guys are going to go. So no, I don't think there are going to be 10 running backs taken in the top 92 picks. However, I think there might be 8. It wouldn't shock me if it gets to 10.
Okay.
But as far as defensive tackles, I absolutely think you're going to see 10 defensive tackles taken in the top 3 rounds.
Yeah. I did an exercise about 2 weeks ago where at the running back position, I kind of broke down the criteria a team would need to take a running back in the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they don't have in order for a team to take a running back in the first 2 rounds, they don't have a bell cow. They don't have a good 1-2 punch of young, talented running backs.
Right.
And I think the number I came up with was 23 out of 32 teams don't fit the criteria to take a running back in the first 2 rounds. And then the teams that do fit it would be a team like a Jacksonville, which you don't know exactly how they feel about. I can't even think of the running back's name now. Not ATN, the backup.
Okay.
Yeah, the backup, because he stepped in really well last year. And then you bring up Pittsburgh. Well, Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. So are they going to value a running back over a quarterback? Same thing with New York. Same thing with, I can't remember the other team off the top of my head, but there were a couple of teams and then a couple of caveats, like maybe the Niners that you could throw in. But I only saw about 8 or 9 teams that would consider taking a running back in the first 2 rounds. And Dallas is one of them, of course. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Tank Bigsby. But yeah, I think needs would outweigh that. Like you said, the defensive tackle list is deep. And
everybody always needs a defensive tackle.
Exactly.
And defensive tackle, everybody talk about the premium 5 positions. Defensive tackle is actually more premium than that 5th on the list when you look at the money that's being spent in the league. Like, it is one of the premium positions now. You got to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And everybody know how important it is to be able to have that run stopping ability, but also that interior pressure put on quarterbacks, whether it's more of a pocket collapser or one that can just quickly win off the snap.
Right. All right. We're at 1 hour and 24 minutes. So as we promised, we'll get you guys out of here in 1.5 hours. Let me just go through my list really quick to see if there's a question that I've missed.
As you do that, CJ West and Jordan Phillips, trash can full of dirt.
I was waiting for that phrase.
Trash can full of dirt. CJ especially. So you've got more of some shorter, sawed-off types. I think they're going to be more, nosed guys for you. Every year I keep wanting the Cincinnati defensive tackle to come out, Dante Corleone. They call him the Godfather. He's another one. You're talking about these little 6'1" guys, right at 300 pounds, but just stout, just tree trunks, and it's hard to move them. And so There's some value for that right there in that 4th round, 5th round spot.
All right. So last question. I asked it for running backs. I asked it again with defensive tackles. You gave quite a few names. Is there a name that Cowboys fans may want to be aware of in day 3 with one of those 3 5th round picks that may be too good to pass up at defensive tackle?
Ty Robinson, Nebraska.
Okay.
Go watch him.
That.
He looks much bigger than what he measured. He wears the number 9 jersey for the Cornhuskers, so that always stands out as a defensive lineman wearing those single digits. But again, he just got that motor inside of his chest. Like he just go, 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 go. And he's got some power and some shock to his hands. He's not going to overwhelm anybody with his athleticism, but he is going to do it with his energy. And so you just like guys who can be able to do that on a defensive line, especially when we're talking about 300-pounders.
Yeah.
I mean, you can leave them on the field. You can put them in different packages. They bring some value to your team. And then that energy that you bring, it's contagious. And so he's one of those guys that you get him in a camp and he's a try-hard guy because he's fighting for a position. And now you're looking at Mozzie upside the head going, hey, are you doing exactly what this guy's doing?
Yeah.
Are you able to, protect your blind side as guys are blocking down on you? Have you worked out that kind of pressure coming on you? Because this Ty Robinson kid, hey, it's a new coaching staff.
Yeah.
This is your make it or break it year. I don't think it's a make it or break it from a sense of being cut, but it's going to be a make it or break it from a sense of, hey, we just got to play some guys. We need ball players. And so you're going to be the one having reduced snaps.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think this is going to be a good year for Mozzie, though.
I like our defensive line coach. I think he can pull something out of him.
Yeah, and Zuniga was good for him last year.
He was.
So I think you're going to see some good stuff out of Mozzie. He's still not going to get to that expectation as a first rounder, but just being an adequate NFL player on the interior, league average, that's all I'm looking for right now out of him. But Ty Robinson is that guy. Go look at him. Okay.
2 more questions, then we'll go. The Star We Are asked the question. We were talking about Grant and what range do you think would be a good spot to take him? Is he a 20s guy? Is he a late teens guy? Is he even a first round guy? What do you have him at?
Yeah, I actually think there's a good chance Harmon might be picked above him because of that pass rush ability.
Mm-hmm.
But I have these guys in that late teens, early 20 range. But here's the scary thing. If you're a defensive tackle, if you're not considered a blue chipper or that number 1 guy in the class, and especially if you're considered more of a one-tech nose tackle type, the league often push those dudes down the board. So there is that opportunity where Kenneth Grant, he may actually fall all the way down. He's one of those, circle him. Please don't show up to the draft and be in the green room because you might be there not being picked on day 1. And then we see you in regular street clothes instead of your nice suit that you got tailor-made for you. So be mindful of that. Those one-tech types that are not blue chips, they tend to slide down the board.
Yeah. All right. Last question. We'll get you out of here because you always bring it when you join us on the show. A lot of great information, especially draft season. Jeff wants to know what your ideal draft would be. And you don't have to give players, just go day 1, I would like to see this or this. Day 2, I like to see this or this. Day 3, these are the type of positions I want to see us go for.
I got to be realistic when I say ideal. I think what's going to happen, I think Dallas is going to want to bail out of that pick.
I agree.
I think they would even be willing to give up a little bit of value to be able to acquire an extra 3rd.
I agree.
Because this is a draft that is going to be stocked with 2nd round grades and 3rd round grades. I got about 36 2nd round grades right now.
Okay.
And about 28 3rd round grades. So you're talking about get another pick in that range, you're going to be great. So My ideal is I hope they can get a receiver and just get it done in the first round.
Okay.
In a trade back situation or a stick and pick at 12. Ted McMillan would be the guy at 12.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is worth that. Of course, Travis Hunter, he falls to you, man. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm not trading up for that. So Ted at 12 or move back and get a Mecca. He would be my favorite move back.
Mm-hmm.
Golden is right there on his heels. And then in the second round, get your running back. You tell me Caleb Johnson is there at 44. We going streaking, bro. Y'all gonna see past after a streak. Or maybe I'll just say I'll barbecue, like go on and start a barbecue or something. But man, that would be a great pick because I think he's more of a complete back.
Yeah.
Some fans are probably wanting Travion Henderson at that spot. I think again, you got to find him a tandem.
Mm-hmm.
So round 2, give me Caleb Johnson. Round 1, give me Ted McMillan. And then in the third round, Alfred Collins. Are you still there? Get my nose tackle out of you. And then if they could somehow get back in the fourth, just give me the best player available. I see a number of cornerbacks that make some sense. Noel Williams out of California. I think he's a sticky guy. We'll love to be able to get him at that spot. Quincy Wilson out of Louisville. You're another good cornerback if you're there in the fourth round. Because, you know, what's going on with Trayvon Diggs, I think he's going to definitely come back and be a Cowboy this next year. After that, you just don't know. He's going to start the year out probably on PUP.
Yeah, I like Elam, but I can't rely on him.
Right. So, yeah, give me wide receiver first round, running back second round, defensive tackle third round. You can talk me into even a linebacker in that third round because there's some players that I like here in this class. Schlesinger out of UCLA. Are you still there in the third round? I'd love to take a swing at that. Could the kid Darius Knight out of South Carolina be there in the third round?
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be somebody to look into. But for sure, those first 2 rounds, I'm really looking to bring the offensive firepower, bring some juice to it, help CD have some elite weapons to go along with Dak as he returns, and solidify that offensive line with what you already have. Just hopefully they make that next year's leap as you got guys who are young who now got some experience and understand what they're supposed to do.
Right. All right, Dom, that's all we got. We went a little bit over an hour and a half. Only had one hiccup with the internet, so glad that we got to get the full time with you. I know you're super busy, but I appreciate you taking the time to join us, talk some draft talk, because there's nobody better, to be quite honest.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. Much love to you, my friend.
All right, man. If you ever want to come back and join us on the Fifth Quarter Podcast, you got an open invitation. Just anytime, just let me know and I'll send you the link.
Yes, sir. We might need to do a little post-draft type thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Or do something even before that.
Yeah, whenever you want to come on, it's fine. I'm pretty much wide open. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Jeff says go check out Deontay Thornton. He's been talking about him for weeks with me, the big receiver out of Tennessee.
You know, I know that one.
Oh, yeah, baby. Of course. Speaking of wide receivers, we're going back to back with the former Pick Six crew. So next week we got Professor O, Matt Owens, who will be joining us to talk about wide receivers and defensive ends. I'm sure it's going to be very Georgia-centric on that defensive side of the ball. So be sure to join us next week at 8:30 Central Standard Time on Wednesday, April 9th for the next episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Once again, we'll have my guy, Professor O, Matt Owen, joining us, giving us his thoughts on wide receivers and defensive end. And then you guys know I don't like doing mock drafts, but we'll probably the week before the draft, we'll do our first and only Fifth Quarter Podcast mock draft. And we'll probably have Amanda and another guest joining us for that one as well. So once again, I'm Marcus, Love City Cowboy. Appreciate all you guys joining us. As you know, this show is fueled by the Fifth Quarter Podcast Nation. All you guys joining us on X, make sure you get in those comments, hit that YouTube link, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Help us to get our engagement up higher. Appreciate everybody joining us as always. I know you guys have a lot of podcasts you can choose to watch on a Wednesday night. We appreciate you joining us for an hour and a half, 4 hours. As always, thank you guys for watching, and let's go Cowboys. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Before we go, I'm sorry, Dom, how can people find you? I almost forgot.
On X, right there's the handle at Dom W White. And then as the season progresses, pick six, we might make a little return. All of us a little bit busy right now. Me with the new job, stepping into a different role. Matto doing his move and taking care of the babies. And then Spoon, Spoon always ready to roll.
Yeah.
So he's just waiting on us. Nick's being a business owner, but we'll get something fresh and going. And so looking forward to seeing you guys again. But you can see me just spitting out some stuff over on X.
Yeah. For you guys who follow the DC4L Facebook group, I'm sure you've seen Dom's name a lot because they share pretty much every tweet you make. I don't know if you realize that. The DC4L Facebook group, every tweet you make, they share it.
That's much love, man.
Yeah. So you definitely are. You definitely have a lot of fans with the DC4L Facebook group. So thank you for joining us again. Appreciate you taking the time out. I know you got a lot going on, and hope to have you again soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, you guys, have a good night. I'll see you next week.